increase margin. You can only cut costs to a point where pretty soon you cut us out. I think that we need to focus on how do we grow and how do we get more activity on the golf course, whether it be Sundays, whether it be evenings, whether it be the driving range, whether it be other events. So again, I'd like to hear more positive things coming about what we can do in the future rather than continually looking at how do we cut costs.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Okay. And Jeff, you'll address that when we...
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Certainly will.
I just wanted to address this question on the 500, and I can tell you from my standpoint, I looked at the 500 as our general expenditures are usually in the upper fours, so $500,000 in reserves would give us enough money to cover a year's expenses if it came to it. Secondly, as we just stated, we know a major hurricane is going to cost us about $250,000 in expenses from repairs and so forth. So, $500,000 covers us for two hurricanes, and it also covers us basically our annual expenditures.
Yeah, I think
That's where I can, and again, that was just a number in my head. I can't speak for everybody else, and I don't believe there is a statute that says you're supposed to have X amount of dollars.
not when it comes to the CDD or any government, quite frankly. In this particular case, what we have to make sure we have in surplus fund balance is at least a quarter of your annual operating expenses, because you're going to realize a quarter of your annual operating expenses October through December before you get your first receipts from the people paying the property tax bill.
Right.
They'll pay late November to get the full 4% discount while holding on to their money as long as possible. By the time it gets through the tax collector and it's distributed to all the various entities on that property tax bill, it's mid to late December anyway. So you need to have at least 1/4 of your annual budget operation in capital operating. The remainder of that really depends upon what kind of a program you're operating. And landscaping is very susceptible to high wind events, and it's an uninsurable asset. So you have cleanup costs, you have replacement costs, and those were about $200,000 coming out of the last storm, which is probably close to a worst case scenario. From a practical standpoint, and that being the only considerations, I think your $500,000 is adequate. Now you start thinking about future projects. And that was some of the discussion when we talked about the 325 and not just giving it back because the debt service assessment was going away. We were retiring the bond, but to keep it flat, replenish at least our surplus fund balances to an appropriate level, but also starting to build surplus fund balance for specific items. And one of the items that kept popping up was the Corkscrew Road widening, was the landscaping or wall requirements. And I remember a number floating around that was like a $2 million number, a $1.8 to $2 million number. It was a large number. And what we were talking about was trying to collect some of those dollars at this time to go towards that expense, realizing we would not realize the full amount in our surplus fund balance to cover the entire cost, but financing the remainder of it. And so trying to offset some of the assessment. So we were going to dial back the assessment, and I recall it was in the $250 range, and still be able to handle a financing of the second, the other portion of that improvement out there. That was a year ago. My memory's not as good as it used to be, but I remember that dialogue, and I don't think we even talked about the road resurfacing at that time, but we have since got a report there. Thankfully, that project really looks like, for the most part, the big costs are out of the way still. But we do have some curbs and gutters that can certainly use some replacement and repair. So in the interim, and particularly in your cul-de-sacs where big vehicles seem to be going over curbs as they're going around the corner. So you do have some realized costs, but keep in mind that the strategy I generally try to put in front of my boards is collecting from people that live here today for an expense that can be 5 or 10 years down the road. That's something you get to do as a CDD is you can secure financing, whether it's a bond or it's a private placement note. I generally like to, if they're small enough and we can manage them, keep them under 5 years, 5 years or less. That removes an additional overhead cost of validating the financing, which can add another $40,000 or $50,000 and 2 to 3 months of time frame in trying to complete that process. But certainly if it's a big enough nut, bonds make sense. But now you're talking 10, 20, 30-year term. So I try to bite them off in 5-year segments, group the expenses that we have out in front of us, put together a 10-year long-term plan, and group those expenses in priority and try to knock them off in 5-year increments so you can remove that validation cost. And at that time, the assessments that you're levying through your annual budget are against those that actually live here at the time, because people move constantly. So to collect from somebody now for a project that in 5 years...
Please put your phone on mute. Thank you.
Generally, that's the strategy we try to employ. But again, this particular one, we were looking at a $1.5–2 million expense that was coming down the tracks at a fast pace, at least the discussion at the time was. It may not be coming quite as fast as it was, but we were looking at that in a couple of years, is what I recall. Trying to cover some of that cost with cash in hand and the financing.
We definitely talked about that.
We did.
This, as Lloyd was saying, the Corkscrew Road thing, I mean, it's completely changed. It's completely changed in what, 6 months? Probably less. The Corkscrew Road was going to go a little bit further north. It was going to shift away from a property line. Now the village has come to us and actually asked potentially to if we would allow them to come onto our property when they want to build a walking path. So the Corkscrew Road discussion is all over the place. Yes, there was some discussion about building a wall. It was never, I don't even know if that's feasible, especially now that they're not moving the road over. It's going to be so close to our, there's not going to be space to build anything. Those types of expenses are just for you all to know. I mean, those expenses are, we don't have a clue. We're not a clue what it would.
My comments are strictly to paint a picture of what the strategy discussion was at the time. So.
And I will say, my opinion is, suddenly we're looking because Corkscrew Road expansion of $1 million, $2 million that this community has to pay because the counties, we need to, as a community, and this board needs to be going the counties in. Sorry.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The F word almost came out. We're not going to do that. There's no way. There's no way we should be burdened with that kind of money because the county's expanding our road.
But there is a portion along there that is our common area that we will need to do.
Oh yeah, not disputing, but I mean, if it comes down to it's really going to be several $1 million. That's insane for us to take that on as a community.
I don't remember that. The first engineering estimate I saw was the low wall of 312.
It's right here.
Just slightly over $1 million.
Right.
Yeah, there was $1 million thrown out there somewhere.
So, I mean, that would include the whole ball of wax, which now doesn't.
Right.
It's going to be the whole ball of wax. It's going to be something else.
But again, another case of, we're collecting money for something we don't know. We don't know.
Exactly.
And top on the fact that there are a ton of people in this community that have taken pay cuts, have lost their jobs. We got business owners that have either lost their businesses or, are very restricted in what they're doing, facing challenges. And we're coming, I know it's $325 and you can say, well, it's not even $1 a day, and you can put all kinds of stuff to it, but it's still, it's the point, and it's still $325 that these people can use, and I can use, and you can use. I mean, we're all paying too for something else.
Yes. Your name, please?
Scott Sutton, Balmain Way. Was any of the funds that were used or taken from the assessment used towards like the deductible for the roof or anything like that?
That's the HOA.
That was the HOA? Okay, I was just curious.
Different.
And like I said, I agree with Lloyd and Chris here. Chris, they're assessments, okay? They can also be added back in.
Right.
So instead of just, and like I say, when you have a savings account and you see it growing, that's an excitable thing. It goes back to your childhood, or most of us. So it's still excitable, but at the same time, it's not our piggy bank that we're putting into necessarily. So I agreed with it. It just so happens I was here for that last time that we talked about and kept it on board. Perfectly made sense. It was going to fly under the radar because people were used to paying it in the past. And that made total sense. But I like the valuations and the thought process of getting to a certain point. But I think Lloyd brought it up too. When is enough enough? From the meetings that I've been to on the HOA and the CDC, the biggest problem seems about being able to use the money that we have, to get the community to vote on something personally is what I've taken away. But I think the key word is it's an assessment. It was put in place for a reason. It can be taken away. I feel it should be taken away. And then these other ideas that projects we may have, then we put them back in place. The only reason I brought up the deductibles and so on and so forth is when you're talking about assessments, or if you're talking about hurricanes and so on and so forth, everyone here who has homeowners insurance or condo insurance could file a claim against their homeowners insurance policy if there's an assessment applied by the community. So, these things happen. I mean, condominiums are synonymous for it. If the roof blows off and it's a hurricane, they have to replace the roof. And then they ask for every unit owner to pay a portion as an assessment. And then they turn around and you can submit that to your insurance company. Some of it should be covered, some of it is. I sell insurance, full disclosure. A lot of it in these hurricanes, these insurance companies, love them or hate them, are writing checks for that stuff because they don't want the blowback from the person. Because they've already suffered enough. They may have been displaced, they may have lost their power for 2 weeks. They're not going to squabble over the $2,000 assessment, or $1,000 depending, that is built into the policy that probably all of us have here. So, just so we know that we don't need to cover something that could be covered somewhere else, and then it's not any more of an out-of-pocket expense for us because we've already submitted a claim to our insurance company. Okay? Thank you for your time.
My name is Bill Reynolds. I live on Wyndham Run. I'm president of the HOA. Bert from Lloyd. I know you've got some emails from the members of the board that are not in favor of 325. We're coming into our budget process as well as you guys are. And you've got 325 hanging out there. We're looking at what we need, and in good conscience, you guys are going to get the money before we will, because if you don't pay your taxes, they get nasty. We turn off your barcode and have trouble getting in. Big deal. But the thing you got to look at is, we have some big expenses the board has gone through in the last couple of years. Gentleman talked about the roof here. It's $100,000 for this roof. We got some money from the insurance company, but it wasn't enough to put a new roof on here. We're in the middle of a $500,000 sewer cleansing process in here. So that's big money going out for people. The last couple of years, I think the dues went up about $70 a quarter. Now, when we come up on our budget, we line item, we know what we want to do, but we're thinking about what you guys are doing. Do we want to sock the people as well? No, in good conscience, we're going to try and do what is right for our people, because everybody's having problems right now. 325, you don't need it. Don't do it.
Well, how about the $60,000 you just asked to pay for? That's actually your responsibility. According to the maintenance agreement, right, between the HOA and the CDD, the Master Board HOA is supposed to do all the maintenance except for the
That's not
landscape.
maintenance. That's replacement.
That is not maintenance.
It's replacement.
That's a replacement of a pipe. The pipe is broken and has to be replaced.
Have you replaced any other pipes up until this point?
We have not replaced anything. We have repaired. We have not replaced anything.
Repair, replacement, I don't know, it's like...
Well, it's...
No, I think it's pretty clear. If we have to, as you're saying, if we have to replace any of that type of drainage,
It's always been the
it's us. You guys clean them out, you get to, do all that stuff, correct?
That's pretty typical. At the very least, it triggers a dialogue between the two entities as to who's in the better position financially to address it, so.
I saw that number too, and I was questioning it, but then you mentioned that.
Well, that's just a...
No, I'm just saying, I saw that, but it's...
Go out and get bids and everything
Right,
else.
but it's replacement. It's not,
Yes, it's a
it's not
replacement.
repair.
Right. We repaired them over here, and we repaired a couple others.
Yeah, like an opportunity to take a swing at it with a couple of contractors before you pull the trigger. So,
Oh, yeah, definitely.
yeah.
Does anyone else have any comments? Does the board have any comments?
I'd like to make the motion to waive the 325 for fiscal year 2020, 2021.
I'll second it.
Any board comments?
Well, I know you put some stuff together to fine tune it from where we were a month or two ago. So I think we should take a look at that and see if we can fine tune it closer than the 325. That's fine.
You know, I was
So
talking-
how long do we have to do this before we have to finally get it to the,
Your September meeting's going to be too late here in Lee County. So.
We have to approve the general, we don't have to approve the golf course budget, but by this meeting, we have to approve the general fund.
Lee County, because of the number of CDDs that are within the boundaries of Lee County, they are actually requiring CDDs to get their assessment rules to them by September 1. We can always submit an errors and omissions, but we have to have them something by September 1. And you're getting really late for your September meeting, so.
All right, well, I know I spoke with John with regard to, and this was several comments that came in via the emails about trees being down from hurricanes and why are we putting money into roads and other things. John, you had said that on the common area for Irma, more than 85 trees were...
Yeah, it was, it's closer to 90 trees almost in the common grounds area and around 70, mid-70s on the golf course.
Okay, well, the golf course is not part of this. So there's 90 trees that were taken down during Irma, and I know one of the emails that came through, someone said with prior hurricanes, more trees were down. And that was one of the things where we had in here, community landscaping, is to start doing some of the landscaping and replacing some of that. The roads, I got an email from Dan, and I'm in agreement. Let's put the roadway, by the time we get to that, and that's 2025, we should be starting, do a bond at that point. So, we take the roadway off of this, but I do think we need to do some landscaping within the community. Maybe not Corkscrew Road, because who knows when the county and the village, or whoever's doing it, will finish that. But I do think we need to do some of the landscaping in the community. Ed and a group of people worked on a whole project, 6-7 years ago. I think we need to put the roadway aside. Let's start doing some of the landscaping. Let's replace some of those trees. Let's start to get the community to look better. And if we do that on I think I figured on a 6-year plan, it would be $67 a month per door front. I'm sorry, $81.
But that's really just based on, I'm not against that, but we don't have it. That's just a number. We don't have any...
Well, I was going back through what we had, and... Excuse me?
You said $81 a month?
A year, I'm sorry. I meant a year.
There.
I'm sorry. Well, at least I know someone's listening.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm a year.
If we spent, let's just say, if we spent $750,000 on landscaping, I'm just throwing a number out there. I have no clue. Let's just say, because I didn't want to say $500,000, I didn't want to say $1 million, so I'm going to say $750,000. Okay? We spent $750,000 on landscaping, and we did it over a 3-year period. That's basically $225 a year per household over 3 years. Okay? We've got that. The bond, we're all currently paying $325 towards the golf course bond, just as a reminder. So the reason the landscaping didn't happen, because the board at the time said, you know what, we're hitting everybody with 325 that's going towards the golf course, which we all have documents that said we wouldn't pay anything towards the golf course. Maybe we should push that landscaping off for a while. And we've done that. We pushed it off for several years. Can it improve? Yes. Should we improve it? I do agree. Yes, we should. But again, it doesn't have to start this year. If we did it in 2021, we could do 3 years. And again, this is I think, if my memory serves, when you got those quotes, and those quotes were 6-8 years ago, we were looking at about $500,000, right?
528.
Yeah, so about $500,000. So that's going to push down a yearly assessment to probably 150 approximately. We would only have another year left on the bond, so you're not making a big hit. So we could address that. Now the roads, we've already got it laid out for us. The engineering company came in and they said, look, you can pay this, you can do this over 7 years. So we would do it over 7 years. We would start with the fiscal year 2024, 2025. That would roughly be an assessment of $225 a month, a year.
We'll get this down to weekly soon.
Per household. So that starts in 2025. We've already taken care of the bond and any potential landscaping prior to that. So we can push this out. And I have mentioned using bonds, but I've also said, because we know it costs $250,000 to issue a bond. It doesn't matter how much the bond is, but it's going to be approximately $250,000 just to issue the bonds. So obviously you would want it to be for the most bang for the buck. So when I've mentioned bonds, I've been like, okay, well, if we could somehow twist all this and get it all together at one time, and maybe if the HOA or Master Board came together with a new building and we could try to work together and maybe finance the whole thing through a bond.
No, I don't think so.
Now, you don't want the public access to your building. So
Yeah, well-
that's what you get.
Okay, that's what I
Anyway.
understand that, okay.
Because we've talked about getting money from them at times when times were tight, so I thought, well,
We
maybe
can take money. We can take money the other way.
Bottom line is the bond, it would have to be a large nut to really justify getting a bond. But, and again, this is a lot of chicken scratch, and I hope you guys are following, but I think we can lay this out where we can do these projects and we can pay for them for the people that are here at the same time that get it and use it. I don't know if I'm going to be here 5 to 10 years from now. I mean, I'm not planning on it, but I don't know that. So I don't know why right now I should be paying for a road project that's going to end in 2031. I just...
Well, that's what I said, Chris. That,
No,
you know,
I get it, but this can work. This can work. We don't have to bond, and we don't have to assess anybody $325 this year. And it would still work. The numbers are there.
So we're not going to do any landscaping.
Well, we have $500,000 in reserves right now. So even if right now, all I'm saying about landscaping right now is we don't know. I don't have any papers in front of me that show, oh, we're going to do this on this street. Oh, I see that. It costs this much, and we say, okay. If we want to start it in 2020, 2021, let's do it. Get people involved. Let's start getting plans, and maybe we do spend some of that $500,000 towards that. Okay, because again, nobody's saying we have to have $500,000 in reserve. So we do have some money that could go towards it.
Yeah, what I can do in your financials and actually in your final budget is I can assign your fund balance. We've got 200,000 is a number we've bounced around for hurricane recovery.
Yes.
Let's make it 200,000 for your working capital for the first quarter of the year. Anything over that, which is 130 or 40,000 according to your projected budget, is available for these kinds of additional projects or any unforeseens during the course of the year.
And it's going to take a while to get together, figure out what we want to do, get the money, not necessarily get the money, but there would be enough money there that we could potentially start a project in 2021. Then we're going into next fiscal year budget, and we can say, okay, now we know how much, and boom, we can assess.
And the homeowners would know that there would be a price tag next year of the tax.
There's a price tag for everything we do. I mean,
Right.
we all run our homes, so basically our homes are businesses. Nothing's really for free. So we all know, and that's what I was saying earlier when this gentleman was talking, is, we throw numbers out, 325, whatever, and I get this a lot. I handle the CDD mailbox, so I get this a lot. When's CDD go away? When's it? It's not. I mean, we keep the infrastructure going, so there's always going to be something that money's going out on. I just personally think, and I think a lot of people do, based on the emails I've gotten in the last 3 days, that $325 this year could be waived. It's not, and I'm not getting emails from people saying they don't want to pay for anything. These people understand that things cost. But I'm getting a lot of emails from people that say, you know, right now, I could use that $325 for something else because of what has happened to our economy. Period.
Mike?
Well, I mean, you can always say there were, things aren't gonna happen, you know, if we have another hurricane, God forbid, we don't. That's the only thing I worry about, is that when something does happen, that we're not gonna have enough money, and we're gonna have to go out to everybody and try to assess people, and you take away $325 now, and then a year from now, we gotta say, oh, we had a big problem, we had some issues, now we gotta assess everybody $400 a year. You know, is that what you wanna do, or since you've been paying it, and you'd rather do that?
Then we have a reason. Knock on wood, we got blown away, category 6. I don't know, yeah.
I mean, in the past, we just have had, working with bare bones, and I think that's what's kind of made us get to this point where we want to put some money aside.
Totally understand, and I don't fault anybody for how they voted. I understand where you're coming from. We've got $500,000 in the bank. We know we have projects which we can outline and we can finance when those projects happen. And these people understand that because we have a project. Right now, we do not have a project in fiscal year 2020, 2021 that says we need $325 from your household to do this project. We don't. It's not in here.
Additional.
Yes, additional. Thank you.
There is a motion and a second at the appropriate time.
I mean, do you waive it, I mean, do you get rid of the whole 325, or is there a number less than that?
That's the motion right now.
Motion right now is to get rid of the 325.
Okay, in the discussion, can we change the motion? Would you be comfortable with anything, just a small amount, remaining? I'm just concerned if we had a hurricane this fall, and then we won't get the money again until after next year.
I will, if I can, the strategy with regards to that is,
Excuse me, one at a time, please.
you still would have a healthy fund balance, okay? Healthier than you were prior to Irma. I would have no problems getting you a line of credit. And getting a loan, and you know, you can get it for 4 or 5 years, and you pay 1 year, you can actually increase your assessments and try to knock it out faster. So you have that as an option to you, as long as you have a healthy balance sheet, which you do have now, which you didn't have before.
And with these monies, we could basically pay for 2 Irmas. We could pay for 2 Irmas right now with the money we have in the bank.
So that's kind of my point. If we're going to earmark $500,000 for various projects next year, if we have a hurricane this fall, we stop the landscaping project next year, and we take care of the hurricane.
Yes.
So it's right, you know, we put off the landscaping for another year, then we make it.
With regards to hurricanes also, it's dead wood. So whatever we paid for in Irma in 2017, everyone has already received a new roof. We've seen them go in. So, no, but it's true. So your trees, your bushes, all the things that were affected have either been replaced with new, or if you're talking landscape, but we already know we have the funds for the landscape. So to sit there and say you're concerned about a hurricane and paying for a hurricane, there may be not the same cost that you incurred in 2017.
Excuse me, can you mute your phone?
Okay,
Thank you.
that was Mark.
Golf Channel.
Golf Channel, okay, all right. All right, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? I'm very
Those
torn.
opposed?
Opposed?
So for the record, 2, 3, and dissenting were Harlan, DeBrino, and Huff.
I'd like to make a motion that we revisit it before it goes to recount and fine tune this. Because I know we had talked about
Excuse me,
getting
can you
the
just...
landscaping project back up, and we had plans for every street, every plant, how many plants per street, and we were ready to go again. It's been 8 years that we've delayed. We're going to keep the land, screw it, I'm done. Good.
Well, technically you are
I am,
after November.
but I mean, how far are you going to push it down the road?
It's really up to these folks.
Okay, Chuck,
But it's up to us.
Well, it's up to the board, but we
We-
represent you guys.
so we have till...
I apologize.
It don't sound like.
Excuse me, wait just a second. We have till September 1st.
We're not, what would we do
Yeah.
for September 1st?
Well,
We'd have to call you.
would the board be comfortable with the lower amount? I just hate giving up the whole thing, because I know next year we come back and ask for money, it's going to be the same thing. Yes, Lloyd?
Well, one of my fears is, I was on the city council up north, and I know how the government works. This bond is going to be done in, what, 2-3 years?
2023.
I don't know if I'm going to be here, but I'll bet you they'll continue it.
You can't.
They won't take that off.
You can't continue it.
This is just the start.
Is there a compromise number?
Well, that's what I'm thinking.
Take off 225 and leave 100 of it towards landscape. I don't know.
that's-
There's something we got. What are you voters?
Well, no, we can make it up into motion, Lloyd.
Make another motion.
Personally, I still feel we need to leave something on there. So I would like to make a motion to drop it.
Like sonar.
That one actually was Dane.
Oh. I leave a motion to leave $100 on the tax bill to start with the landscaping, replacing the trees that came down in Irma, and do other basic landscaping within the community.
Can you bring the report?
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Did I understand you to say you're going to cut it $100 or leave it at $100?
Leave it at $100.
Okay.
But essentially dropping the current proposed assessment by $225 per dollar fund.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
That's 3-2 the other one.
So,
It's always going to be a 3-2 vote, no matter what we do.
Well, now I think you're to a point where maybe you can move this through to conclusion.
okay. So we dropped the assessment, $225, we will have $100. We'll revisit it next year. But the other thing that I would like to do is, we can discuss this at the September meeting, and anyone that's interested, I would like to start another landscaping committee. I would like to see what we can do in the community. We have the old plans, we can look at what was there. The landscaping is 20 years old, we need to do something. So anyone that might be interested, please just email the CDD email. Chris will get names to me, and we can work on that at that point. Okay?
Now, I have a question. So
Okay.
this extra $100, so we're looking at, what, 130,000? Right?
Well, I'm at 150 right now, I'm still working it up, so.
So, can you create a accounting ledger on our balance sheet that puts that $150,000 into a specific account that will be used for landscaping.
Yeah, well, it's actually assigned fund balance.
So that's what
Fund balance,
where?
fund balance with an assignment, and as I was talking about earlier, we want 200,000 towards catastrophe response. 200,000 for working capital, that's the first quarter of your operating year.
Right.
And then the balance of that would be
For the landscape.
generally, landscaping, or until you
Well, let's do
identify,
some for
until you identify something, some other project, but it would be landscaping for the interim. And all it takes is a motion of the board to unassign any of those assignments, okay? But the reserve, an actual bona fide reserve, it's a whole different program, so.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. Okay.
But it would just come into the fund as revenues.
Yep.
Right, but we will have it earmarked, similar to what I did on the sheet. You know,
It'll be in your fund balance, but we'll actually have an assignment to it, and we'll break it
Right.
down.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Just want to make sure I understand. There's a $325 golf course bond.
That's the
And
bond.
that's going to go away at the end of 2024?
Yes,
2023.
23. Maybe.
maybe, yeah.
The bond will be paid.
The bond will be paid.
Right.
And we will have projects assigned by that point in time, whether it's the roadway, because the roads would start in 2025, finishing the landscape, possibly the corkscrew road. So when that bond is paid, we will still have other projects that we may need to come to you for, whether we get a bond or whether we